everybody, and welcome to another edition of Big Time Boxing. And on this show, I often invite as guests excellent journalists that cover the sport of boxing. And on this show, we have one of the very best, Manouk Akopyan, who is a fantastic writer, has written for newspapers, websites of all varieties, and is currently one of the senior writers for Ring Magazine, covering the sport expertly. And he's going to visit with us today to talk about a couple of the stories he's written recently and some of the other goings on in the sport of boxing. So let me welcome him in. Manouk, how are you?
Al, a pleasure to be joining you. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. A busy schedule, a lot to talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is quite a busy schedule, and you're very busy covering the sport for Ring, and have had a number of articles that we're gonna touch on. One of the things that you're actively involved in covering right now is the launch of this Terence Crawford Canelo Alvarez matchup in September. That is obviously one of the major fights that could possibly be made in the sport. And in the launch of this, it's kind of been accentuated that this is clearly one of those crossover fights, one of those fights that, in America especially, reaches out to crossover fans who are more casual boxing fans that maybe are sports fans. How important is that right now to that fight and in general boxing?
Yeah, I mean, this is the fight that moves the needle both from a boxing diehard standpoint and from a mainstream standpoint. The fact that the Netflix engine is going to be the one pushing this all the way until September 13, Dana White and the forces behind TKO are going to be the ones pushing this. Obviously, it's a Riyadh season produced and financed event. So you're going to have all of these entities coming together to put together what is perhaps one of the most anticipated fights we've had in definitely since Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather in 2015. And from an actual stylistic standpoint, a fight you were involved in, Errol Spence, Terence Crawford.
Yeah.
And this is that magnitude of level of fight. Obviously, it's destined for more commercial success than Crawford's fight against Spence. It's going to be at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Over 65,000 fans are expected to be there. So this is the fight that I think is going to really set the temperature and the barometer of where these super fights could be going moving forward. During TKO Group's latest earnings call, they said they're going to produce 4 super fights a year, right, in addition to 12 Zuffa boxing events a year. So this is certainly the start of something big.
Yeah, you wrote a story in which you quoted and did an interview with Dana White talking about their plans moving forward. And one of the interesting things is, you mentioned it, the fact that it's going to be shown on Netflix, which for free to all their subscribers, and clearly that's an important facet, and that's part of what gets in the United States, in any case, the mainstream media to actually cover the fight, which is, to me, one of the main parts of this, that the mainstream sports media and beyond will cover this fight.
No, absolutely. And I think that's the big thing, right? Because Canelo has been a star for over a decade, fought, obviously, Floyd Mayweather, and the list goes on, the Gennady Golovkin trilogy. And for now, he's running out of challengers, right? He's cleaned out the entire 168-pound division. Yes, there are some up-and-coming talent out there.
He almost cleaned it out, except for David Benavidez.
Yes. He kind of forced David Benavidez's hand to move up to 175 pounds because he didn't have much interest in fighting him. But And Crawford, I think, saw this opening, right? Because this
Yeah,
fight has been
right.
developing for a little
Exactly.
over 2 years now. Once he saw Jermell Charlo move up from 154
Right.
to fight Alvarez at 168, he's like, I could be doing this too.
Yeah.
And he started baiting Canelo in, and once the powers that be came together and signed off on it, here we are.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple months as we head toward this match. The promotional engine will be rumbling, and there'll be a lot of discussions about not only what will happen inside the ring, but the overall impact of this fight on the sport. You and I were another story that you wrote recently, which is of a completely different nature, um, had to do with an issue that you and I were directly involved with when we did a broadcast together, along with Corey Erdman, for the championing mental health boxing card that was out in Los Angeles, and that card was all about boxers and people in boxing having access to wellness in the mental health area. And you did a story in which Deontay Wilder, the former heavyweight champion who is fighting again this weekend, really opened up to you about some of the issues that he has struggled with. That was kind of extraordinary.
Yeah, and here we are, Deontay Wilder coming back after another. He didn't say it's a comeback because he never retired, but he's 1-4 in his last five
Yeah.
fights since the Tyson Fury trilogy ended, and his last two fights he hasn't looked good, and those were against Joseph Parker, a 12-round unanimous decision
Mhm.
loss, a 5-round stoppage loss to Zhei Li Zhang, and Wilder just hasn't able to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Uh, for a man who once said he wants to catch a body on his record, he hasn't been fighting with that killer instinct,
Yeah.
and now he wants to take a couple of tune-ups. He sought a sports psychologist to kind of go through some of the mental health issues he was facing. Unfortunately, he was dealing with some problems with his inner circle, the closest people around him, he said. And he didn't get into specific details, but obviously some complicated relationships led to him bringing those problems inside the ring with him, he said, and which was responsible for the subpar performances that we saw. So now here we are. At 39 years old, he's going to be trying to turn back the clock with a performance against Herndon.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he can do that, and also hopefully, no matter what, the demons, whatever they are, that however they've been created, that have affected him in recent times, that he can get past that. And I thought it was pretty remarkable. You and I both found the event that we did, the championing mental health card, a very interesting one because so many boxers and everyone talked about how boxers, especially in a very demanding and violent sport, are subject to those kinds of issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen it throughout the years. I think a lot of fighters are more open about this. It
Yeah.
started really with Tyson Fury and opening up with his mental health problems. We've seen the likes of Danny Garcia, Ryan Garcia, Adrian Broner. There's a lot of fighters who have talked about openly, all of the setbacks that they face, and this is not a team sport where
Right.
that they could really rely on teammates and the head coach and management. Fighters they have small circles for the most part. It's their trainer, it's their camp, and that they're forced to deal with this on their own. So the fact that there is an active discussion happening right now, it's I think great for the sport and great for a lot of the up and coming generation as well too.
Yeah, very good point. So in this current edition of the Ring magazine that's out, I wrote a column about the second half of the year in boxing and how I thought the second half of this year could be truly extraordinary. And one of the things I based it on is the beginning of the second half of the year, which is this coming month of July, which could be one of the more remarkable months the sport has had. The July 11th, two cards in New York. The July 11th, Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor match up with a stacked undercard of women championship fights, including Savannah Marshall and Shadeja Green. And then the July 12th match, also in New York, next day, with Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda battling along with Edgar Berlanga and Hamza Shiraz. And then a great fight, Subriel Matias and Alberto Puello also on that card. And then a week later, you have Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois battling. Boxing fans sometimes have a hard time being glass half full, don't they? But it seems like those kind of things kicking off the second half in July should give boxing fans a lot of positive things to think about.
Yeah, talk about the schedule heating up right at the right time, right? Here we are, July is about to produce perhaps the hottest month of the year. And like you said, it starts with the Taylor Serrano trilogy. And if the third fight can live up to the first two, boy, we got a barn burner on our hands. And credit to MVP for bringing this fight to Madison Square Garden on Netflix, all female fight card. You know, they've been busy behind the scenes signing a lot of these female fighters, and they're going to be front and center on this show. Great platform, great opportunity. And then the next night, Louis Armstrong Stadium, it's going to be the ring card headlined. It's going to be a double main event, as it's being called, with Shakur Stevenson and William Zepeda, Hamza Shiraz and Edgar Berlanga. Fight I'm most looking forward to on that one is Alberto Puello and Subriel Matias. I think that one has fireworks written all over it. And then the big night on July 19, Pacquiao's comeback, the Usyk.
I forgot to mention that when I mentioned all those fights.
And then we have Bam Rodriguez, one of the top pound-for-pound stars in the sport, in a title unification fight against Cafu in Texas.
Yeah, and the Pacquiao fight has a really stacked undercard as well. So in that span of a couple weeks, if you think about it, the two shows on the 19th, the two shows on the weekend of the 11th as well, plus Pam Rodriguez, that's as much good boxing as you can pack in a 2-week period as I think is imaginable. And when you look at all those fights, and it's pretty hard to think that there aren't 3 or 4 or way more amazing matches mixed into the mix there.
Absolutely. And I think the one I am most looking forward to altogether is the Sebastian Fundora-Tim Tszyu fight.
Yeah.
Just because the implications it's going to have on that division. 154 is one of the hottest divisions in the sport right now. We have guys like Virgil Ortiz Jr., Bakram Murtazaliev, who are ready to pounce on, and Jaron Boots Ennis, who just came up to the division. There's the likes of Jermell Charlo, who said he still wants to fight at 154 pounds. So that fight is going to have major implications as far as some of the future fights we'll see in that division. And if it lives up to, again, the first fight, the bloodbath, the back and forth battle that we saw, it should be in, we should be in store for a great night.
Yeah, and it'll tell us a little bit more about whether Tim Tszyu has come back to form after 2 losses in a row. Though in that first fight with Fundora, he was doing very well in that fight before the elbow clipped him. But then his performance after that, he did not perform well in. You are, before I let you go, I mentioned all the plaudits to you for the amount of coverage and what you've done in the sport of boxing. How has this coverage of the sport changed in the last 4 or 5 or 6 years with the addition of so much social media, much of boxing being now covered digitally? You've worked for newspapers before when they were a major source of it, and TV is always, in America anyway, has always been spotty in its coverage of boxing. But now digitally is where most people read and get their boxing information.
Absolutely, Al. You know, I was with the LA Times for the longest time, and unfortunately, the newspapers just don't have an appetite
Yeah.
for boxing as much as they did in its heyday. I was with Boxing Scene for the longest time, and now I'm with Ring Magazine. And with Ring Magazine, it's really fun and exciting times with what we have here.
Yeah.
Uh, Working under Rick Reno's leadership, Keith Idec, my longtime colleague, just getting the team together. Mike Coppinger, of course, he recently joined as well too, and it's great to have the teammates that I've had throughout the years, and we're doing it together now on Ring Magazine. And when you mention the entire distribution of everything is changing, like here we are doing these video conference.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day, it was the plain Jane phone interviews, which was fun for no one. And you know, now at least there's this face-to-face engagement. We get to, you know, I try to do these. I try to talk to the fighters and go to the gyms as much as possible and do them face-to-face. But you know, in 2025, we have the advent of doing these video conference
Yeah.
calls, which you know at least gets to help you uh, uh, humanize the subject a little bit better rather than the phone call interviews from back in the day.
Yeah, it has altered. That's a very, very good point because it's altered how people are able to digest and get their information, and it is a little more personal. That's for sure. Manouk, I look forward to all your great stories in the Ring magazine, in Ring on the Ring website, and they're always great. And you're gonna have a lot of fun covering a lot of matches coming up.
Absolutely, Al. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you having me on. Always a pleasure working with you on the TV calls we do, and always a pleasure talking about the sport in this format as well.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Manouk Akopyan, the fine writer from Ring Magazine and the Ring website, and he does great work for them and will be a busy guy in the coming couple of months, that's for sure. If you enjoy what you've seen here and other content that we've been putting up on the Salida Promotions YouTube channel, please subscribe and like it, and we'll be very grateful. And we'll see you next time on Big Time Boxing.